In the 15th and 16th centuries, there existed adventurers known as the Conquistadors. These were not your average soldiers. They were Iberian warriors, fearless and ambitious, sailing across oceans to explore distant lands yet unseen by European eyes. Their mission? To conquer and claim these lands for their empires. Picture this, a group of rugged men, armed to the teeth, setting foot on foreign shores with dreams of gold and glory dancing in their heads. These conquistadors were not afraid to face the unknown. They battled indigenous peoples, wielding their swords and muskets with ruthless determination. And when victory was theirs, they claimed the spoils of war, lands, treasures, and anything else of value. Among the most notorious conquistadors were Hernán Cortés and Francisco Pizarro. Cortés set his sights on the Aztec Empire in Mexico, while Pizarro aimed to conquer the mighty Inca civilization in South America. These men were driven not just by greed, but also by a fervent belief in their mission, fueled by religious zeal and the promise of riches beyond imagination. But the life of a conquistador was not all glory and triumph. It was fraught with danger, warfare, disease, and the constant threat of death lurked around every corner. Many met their end on foreign soil, leaving behind a legacy of destruction and cruelty. And the imperial vanguard continued their march across the uncharted territories, a motley crew of soldiers and leaders, driven by ambition and the promise of riches. Among them were men of varied backgrounds, from humble foot soldiers to those who claimed noble lineage. Many had honed their skills in the battles of the Reconquista and the wars in Italy, yet found themselves adrift in Europe, with little hope for advancement due to their illegitimate status. But then came the fateful year of 1492, when Christopher Columbus set sail and stumbled upon the New World. For these men, it was a chance for a fresh start, a land where social status mattered little and wealth awaited those bold enough to seize it. Even women like Maria de Estrada dared to defy convention and join the ranks of the conquistadors, seeking adventure and freedom far from the confines of European society. The monarchs, eager to exploit the riches of distant lands, offered little support for these expeditions. Instead, they relied on the conquistadors themselves to foot the bill, with the promise of rewards upon their return. It was a risky venture, fraught with peril, disease, accidents, and the unknown dangers of uncharted lands. Yet, despite the odds, the conquistadors pressed on, fueled by a mix of religious zeal and greed. For many, the desire to spread Christianity to the indigenous peoples was intertwined with their pursuit of wealth and glory. But for others, especially those of dubious backgrounds and questionable morals, the allure of quick riches was the sole driving force. As the conquistadors ventured into the uncharted lands of the Americas, Africa, and the Pacific, they encountered civilizations already thriving in those remote corners of the world. The locals, fiercely protective of their homelands, resisted the invaders with every ounce of strength they could muster. However, the conquistadors possessed a technological advantage that proved to be a game-changer. Their weaponry, a formidable array including the crossbow, cannon, arquebus, steel sword, attack dogs, and cavalry, made them seem almost invincible against indigenous warriors armed with weapons centuries behind in terms of technology. The conquistadors' armies, though fewer in number, emerged victorious over indigenous forces that outnumbered them by the thousands. Exploiting age-old tribal rivalries, the conquistadors cleverly garnered allies in their quest for dominance over the lands previously controlled by other empires. Clad in metal cuirasses, upper leg guards, and gauntlets, the conquistadors were a formidable sight on the battlefield. However, as they realized their opponents were lightly armed, their armor became lighter as well. The humid climate took its toll on metal armor, leading many conquistadors to adopt local alternatives like quilted jackets made from cotton or maguey fibers soaked in salt water for added toughness against arrows. A distinctive feature of conquistador attire was the morion helmet, its prominent crest and upturned peak becoming a symbol of their presence. Shields, be they bucklers or hardened leather, provided additional protection. Yet, even with their formidable defenses, conquistadors were not impervious. Well-aimed darts, arrows, and slingshots could still pose a serious threat, especially to an unprotected face. The indigenous peoples, although at a technological disadvantage, wielded their weapons with skill and ingenuity. Despite the conquistadors' advantages, the defenders had their own tactics, often highly ritualized. Officers, identifiable by their prominent costumes, became targets on the battlefield. while indigenous warriors preferred capturing live enemies, providing opportunities for rescues by comrades. The clash of worlds continued as the conquistadors pressed forward, armed with superior technology and a determination to claim new territories for their empires. As the conquistadors carved their path through the uncharted lands of the Americas, Africa, and the Pacific, they left a trail of conquest and plunder in their wake. Once they had conquered an area, they wasted no time in sharing out the spoils of their conquests: gold, silver, emeralds, pearls, and precious woods among them. These treasures, once revered by indigenous peoples, were melted down without regard for their cultural significance, simply to facilitate distribution among the conquistadors. By the mid-16th century, staggering amounts of gold and silver had been plundered from the American continent, enriching the coffers of European monarchs and fueling the continent's economy. Yet, the distribution of these riches among the conquistadors was often uneven, leading to disputes and even violence among them. Legal claims and bitter feuds over shares of the loot plagued some of the most renowned conquistadors, including Cortés and Pizarro. With their gains secured, the next phase of colonization began: the pacification of conquered territories. This phase focused on long-term exploitation of resources through mining, slavery, and forced labor. However, the conquistadors, ill-equipped for governance and often resorting to brutal methods, soon found themselves at odds with church figures and colonial authorities. The atrocities committed by the conquistadors did not go unnoticed. Men like Bartolomé de las Casas, a former conquistador turned Dominican friar, exposed the horrors of the conquest through vivid accounts like A Very Brief Recital of the Destruction of the Indies. These revelations led to growing condemnation of the conquistadors, both at home and abroad. Meanwhile, Spain's new laws of 1542 attempted to alleviate the suffering of indigenous peoples, further alienating many conquistadors and their descendants. With their authority eroded and their dreams of establishing dynastic rule dashed, many conquistadors faced limited options: returning to Spain empty-handed, settling into peaceful pursuits, or embarking on new expeditions in search of wealth. Despite the tragedies and devastation wrought by their expeditions, the conquistadors paved the way for future colonization by mapping unexplored territories. Their relentless quest for riches and glory reshaped the world map and fueled the ambitions of European rulers to claim as much of it as possible. As the 16th century drew to a close, the legacy of the conquistadors continued to reverberate across continents. Their conquests had redrawn the map of the world, bringing distant lands and peoples into the fold of European empires. Yet, their actions also left scars, both physical and cultural, that would take generations to heal. Despite the hardships and atrocities, the conquistadors' expeditions were not in vain. Their daring journeys opened up new frontiers, revealing lands rich in resources and ripe for exploitation. The maps they created paved the way for further exploration and colonization, laying the foundation for the global interconnectedness that would define the centuries to come. But as the conquistadors faded into history, replaced by colonial administrators and settlers, a new era dawned, one marked by the collision of cultures and the struggle for power and dominance. The echoes of their conquests would linger for centuries, shaping the destinies of nations and peoples far beyond the shores they once plundered. In the end, the story of the conquistadors is a complex tapestry of ambition, greed, and the relentless pursuit of adventure. While their deeds may be tarnished by violence and exploitation, they also represent the indomitable spirit of exploration and discovery that has driven humanity to explore the unknown since time immemorial.